Well, a couple of weeks ago I showed you some of the top performing annuals here at our studio gardens, and a few of them were passed on to us by our gardening friends from the Wichita Botanical Gardens and the Cann Memorial Gardens in Ponca City. Now the plants have performed nicely, but like so many plants that are shared by gardeners, they often get their own common name, which is used to describe a particular characteristic but may not be the official name used in the trade. And therefore it becomes virtually impossible to communicate with your garden center as to what you're wanting, especially if it's not a very common one grown in that particular area. Now there's a couple of the ones that I've tell you have really caught the attention of our studio garden visitors, and they actually fall into this scenario, and I want to show you a couple of them. This one here is really one that has caught a lot of attention, and when people walk up to it and first look at it, they guess that it's a chrysanthemum, but actually it's a coleus. And let me show you just how much of a comparison there is. If you look at the foliage of this chrysanthemum here, and you can see that shaped leaf, it really does look like that almost on the coleus leaf. Therefore, that's how it was given a name of mum coleus as a common name, and that one again was shared with us through the Cann Memorial Gardens, and all we knew was it was just called mum coleus. But recently I had a good friend of mine from Texas stop by the garden, and he was able to help us get these properly identified. This one again is a coleus, and the common name is duckfoot coleus. And if you look at the foliage, it's kind of a variegated between a purplish color, and on inside it's more of a green color. It's a little bit more compact, and we haven't seen a lot of flower stems come out of it, so it's really performed nicely for us. But let me give you the genus species, the updated version of that, so in case you ask for it, you can share that with the garden center. And it's pronounced Solenostemum scutelloides, and that is again the most up-to-date genus species, and that's quite a mouthful and one that you'd probably want to write down and take in, but that's what they would need to look for if they're trying to find it in the trade. Now an old genus species name is Coleus, and you'll see often an X with hybrid or hybridus, which means that it's just a crossed coleus, a hybrid, with a cultivar or variety name of duckfoot. And so those are the two of the names that you'd probably want to pass along to try to find out about this particular one. So again, we've been real pleased with it, but you can see how that is a name that would really confuse people, the chrysanthemum or mum coleus, when it's actually called duckfoot. Now another one we just recently showed you was called Indian runner, which if you remember was a ground cover with a yellow composite-like flower. It's very aggressive as far as its growth, and it performed wonderfully in our summer heat. Well, using the name Indian runner, we were not really able to find any information about it, again until we had some help from this friend of mine. And this particular one is actually called Wedelia, which also happens to be the genus. And the genus species is Wedelia trilobata. And that's actually named after a German botanist, Wedel, and the trilobata is because the foliage is three-lobed. If you look at it very closely, you'll see that each leaf has three lobes on it. And this one is most commonly grown in southern Florida and other tropical areas, and therefore in the Houston area, why he was pretty familiar with it. Again, Wedelia trilobata. So you can see that this goes to show you that when exchanging plants or purchasing them at a garden center, try to always request a scientific name so you can find out more about that plant. Now common names are not always used correctly, as you could tell, and they're often used to describe more than one plant. So you don't have to use a genus species in the conversation unless you're into that kind of thing, but if it's on a label or in a file at home, you can share it with your gardening friends when you need to. And now those of you interested in these plants can go to your garden center and request them by their appropriate name, which the garden center can then use to locate the plant in the trade if they don't already carry it.